Hello and welcome to Doing Time, where humans talk about their experiences in a psych ward. Today we have guest Ty Riggs, otherwise known as Ty Riggs, y'all.
Yes.
And Chicago comedian, podcast host.
Actor, singer, dancer.
Keep going.
Writer.
Human being.
Yeah, human, most definitely.
So the first question I always ask is how much time have you done? We're going to talk about your experiences in a psych ward, things along that kind of route, obviously.
Yeah.
You know.
I spent a week and a half.
Damn.
Yeah, it was the week and a half before my 18th birthday. Yeah.
God. We're off to a great start, folks.
Yes.
And, wow. Okay. So, were you in Chicago? Where were you?
Yeah, I was in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm born and raised, and that was a dumb day. Like looking back, It was a pretty dumb day.
Mm-hmm.
How do I start it? Do I start from like the beginning, or do I go like to some?
So my idea kind of is also trigger warning. I mean, some people have been complaining, but I do have a trigger warning on the podcast. There may be content that's graphic or disturbing, triggering. It's kind of hard to say that as a comedian because I'm like, trigger, it's not a good word, but yeah, no, this podcast is definitely, I mean, people are pretty graphic because people want to share their stories.
Right.
So say whatever you want, don't share whatever you aren't comfortable sharing. Also, I was going to say go into kind of just like, what led you there, what happened.
Okay,
your experience there.
I've always had to deal with mental illness. I was diagnosed with depression and slight ADHD a little bit when I was younger. Like mental illness runs in the family because you can tell what's wrong with certain family members. So my mom was very like on it when it came to me acting out or doing things in school. So I had a counselor. I had a doctor as a kid growing up. So I dealt with all that shit.
Right.
Fast forward, I was 17. I forgot fully what happened. It was a weird time. Like a lot of things were happening in that time frame. Yeah. Like I was in a new school. I just lost my virginity. The girl I really liked at school wasn't into me because I was a dork.
Oh.
So
like Hood Nerds podcast.
It wasn't even about me being a nerd. It was about just me being a dork. It's two totally different things. It's hard to describe.
Right.
But she wasn't into me. Yeah, and I understood that, but I was like, I was sad about it. But that wasn't even like the reason I even went to do what I did. It was kind of like just woke up that morning. I'm like, I guess today is the day. So I went to school, and I asked this dude, which is fucked up because I went to a Latino school. Yeah. And I asked the one white guy. Like, he was like a tall white dude because there was a lot of dudes that was in there that was older than, I guess, the age of leaving school, which, whatever. But I went, asked him. He was like one of those, trench coat wearing, big Doc Marten boots, listen to like super hard rock or whatever. So I went to him and I asked him for a gun. And he was like, why, man? It was like, you beefing with somebody? You got a problem with somebody? I'll go with you and beat their ass, man. And I was like, no, I just need the gun, bro.
He was already on your side.
Yeah, he was. I was cool with him beforehand, so like I knew him to like. So if I needed something, he might be able to hook me up.
Right.
But he was like, no, bro, you don't need a gun, man. He was like, we could just beat their ass, bro. Like, man, bro. And I was like, oh, I gotta go to class. Never mind, man. Right.
Yeah.
So
he overcommitted to the bit.
Yeah.
It was just too much. Yeah.
So I left it alone. Went through my school day, and like halfway through the day, I get called up to the counselor's office. So I was like, what did I do this time? I wasn't thinking it was that. I was thinking it was maybe something else. Maybe I didn't do my homework because I don't do my homework.
Right.
So I went up to the counselor's office. Counselor was like, we talked to Michael, and he says, he didn't want to seem like he was snitching or anything, but he was really concerned about you, and you had asked him for a gun. And they had already called my mom, so I was like, fuck.
Right, so now you're just, like, trapped at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
So I basically told them what the plan was or whatever. And
good for you. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
When you're in that state to be like, this is what I wanted to do. It's like, admitting that is hard.
Yeah, and then in my experiences, when you fess up and just give the whole story instead of like trying to fight it and like, you know, and deny it or whatever, things usually just get handled.
Yeah.
And be over with. You can kind of just take a breath and it wouldn't be an issue anymore.
Right.
But they suggested we went to Hartgrove for, you know, an assessment, or they talked to a doctor or whatever.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, I was in scrubs.
Damn.
I didn't even get home. Like, I was like, and it was in my neighborhood. So I passed my house from school.
So close.
To get to the fucking.
So close. To going home, yeah.
So.
Sure. Dude, you're the second person. I didn't know that you, like, had to change into scrubs.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to boys, you can't have belts. You can't really have, like, shoes with laces or whatever.
Right.
So they put us in scrubs. But your parents could bring jogging pants and T-shirts for you. Yep. If they care. So, like, you can tell the kids whose parents cared opposed to the ones who didn't.
Yeah, they wear jeans for 7 days, and you're like, dude.
You couldn't wear jeans. You had to wear scrubs.
Or the scrubs.
So it's like you walking around, you had the scrubs, and then you had the dudes with jogging pants and shorts.
Yeah. I didn't have that, and I stayed at 3 different hospitals.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, I stayed at 3 different hospitals. None of them had scrubs, for sure. I just say that because the people that I knew that didn't have, like, parents or people who cared, quote unquote, to come see them, they wore the same shit for, like, days. Because they didn't have shit. I mean,
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to have joggers and stuff. It was interesting because there was really only 3 of us that were there for, well, I was the only one there for suicidal ideation.
Okay.
Moses actually slit his wrist up.
Holy
like,
shit.
you got to see.
And you were under 18, so you were in the kid.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
And I was the oldest kid. Like, I was the week away from 18, so everybody else was like 16, 15, 14. There was not really any, like, psychotic kids. They weren't, like, off. They were just, like...
Right.
Most of them were angry niggas.
Yeah.
So it's like they had personality disorders. Some of them were in gangs. Some of them were in the projects. They got locked up in there for acting out, mostly getting into arguments, getting into fights too much in school. So their grandparents or their parents was like, you know, take them to the hospital, see if medicine and counseling can help.
Right. For sure.
And there were several times where the counselor stopped us from being loud or talking stupid and was like, this is not jail. This is a step before jail. There's something to fix whatever's going on in your mind so that you can live a regular life instead of ending up in prison.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of other people. And I'm just sitting there like, man, look, I tried to kill myself. If
right.
I go to prison for trying to kill myself, then that just... It's more motivation.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. And that's interesting. Well, because when you first said that, I was like, how is that a step to jail? But I guess the acting out part. Yeah. Where, like, a lot of people I know that have mental illness or whatever, you know, some of them cope with stealing and things like that. And it's just like, okay, well, clearly that can lead to jail. Yeah. Or anger issues or, you know, killing other people instead of yourself. I mean, it just can get super aggressive, but especially if you're warped in, like, a cult-like system. But it's, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. There were definitely people, too, who were, like, at one of my hospitals. I was there under 18 for one of them, and then the second time I was, like, 19. And there was this one dude, who definitely got involved in drugs and gangs and stuff like that. And I had one girl when I was under 18 who had, like, an ankle bracelet on, like, probation. Yeah, it was pretty intense. I was very intimidated by her too, because I almost just felt like she was a step above us in a sense.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know, because she just, like, went that extra step where it's just like, oh, you know. And I think her dad was a cop, too.
Oh,
so it's just the whole, like, thing was fucked. Yeah.
That is crazy. See, I was only with dudes. It was, like, it wasn't co-ed. Like, we were across from the girls, so sometimes we'll see them peeking over into, like, our area.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we were totally separated from the girls. It was just us guys and the counselors.
Yeah.
We had roommates.
Okay.
I was lucky enough to have a pretty cool roommate. His name was Prince. Uh-huh. He was kind of slow. I shared my books with him.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, so I was the only one with books. I had jogging pants, so I was kind of chilling.
Yeah.
So, like,
you were pampered.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And It was regular. We had like group sessions. We had lunch. We had dinner, breakfast, snacks. We watched movies sometimes. Got to know these guys.
Yeah.
Everybody was interesting because everybody had their own story on how they got there.
Yeah. And how did you, so, you know, I've had people on the podcast who have said, like, we weren't allowed to talk about our stories. We were. How was your relationships with people in the hospital? Like, did you feel like you got help or out of your suicidal ideations? Did it help you?
Yeah. Getting to know the dudes that were in there with me was like, shit, my life is fine. These niggas is going through some stuff. Like, one dude just met his mom 3 weeks before he got put in there. And then he was like a 6'5" dude, and everybody was talking about how they were crack babies. And I'm like, but you look healthy as hell, dog.
You made it.
Right. One dude got in an argument with the counselor because he felt like he needed to sell drugs for his family to survive. And I was like, I've never been in that position where I'm the man in the house.
Right.
I've been a man in the house, which means I had to do man stuff, shovel snow, plant flowers or some shit, lift heavy objects, reach things that my mom can't reach. You know, that's man shit.
But you weren't the man.
Right. I wasn't the provider. I wasn't the one that brought, you know, that. Yeah, I wasn't the hunter and gatherer. I was just help.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so, I mean, I've been in so many, and it's hard to speak to it as just like a white person, but it's just like I've been in so many classes and like cultural issues of psychology, and we talk about the whole structural oppression of being in a gang, of being in violence, and thinking that that is the only way. And I mean, it's interesting too because like my brother is a drug addict, my brother's a heroin addict, but but he, you know, he was never involved in any type. He also has Asperger's, so it's like he could never keep a secret. He has the biggest I mean, can you imagine a person with Asperger's trying to like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to write this bit about how like his version of getting heroin is like, can I have some heroin? Like, he's so aggressive and like just no social cue awareness.
Right.
So it's like that he was never involved in a gang. He just couldn't. I think he'd be the worst gang member there ever was. But, like, in terms of that, I mean, I understand. Like, I've seen people get in fights with counselors over stuff like that, too.
Right.
Because,
But overall, it was okay. There wasn't, like, there were a few guys that I was scared of. There were people who were actually crazy.
Yeah.
When I got there, everybody kept on mentioning one dude. I'm like, where he at? Where Kurt at? Where Kurt at? And it was like,
still want to make sure he's behind you or something.
Yeah, and then everybody was like, oh, Kurt, he got too loud, and they gave him the booty juice, which I forgot what was I forgot what the technical term was. They call it the booty juice because it's like they give you a shot in your ass to go to sleep.
Are you serious?
Yeah, if you act up.
What the fuck? It's in your butt?
Not in the hole, but like on the cheeks.
Not in the hole. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah. So you act.
It's like butt chugging, but
with sleep medicine.
Yeah. God, that's so fucked up. Okay. I thought it was like in the arm, but anyways, yeah.
There's one for the arm, and I think there's like a drink. But if they have to tie you down, then
right, it's forceful. I mean, you can't like force me to drink something, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
you
so
shoot them.
What? Shoot them.
Yes.
Right. But if you act up, they call your doctor because everybody has like their own doctor. They have their own. They have a counselor that's in charge of them.
Right. Yeah. Own counselor, own psychiatrist, that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had the booty juice and he was out for like 3 days.
Yeah.
But when he came in, he was pretty cool. Yeah, he was out for like 3 days, which is like, I don't need a shot to take me out for 3 days.
No, that's you're like, I just have depression.
Yeah.
That's my shot for 3 days. It's just depression. Sorry.
So we it was okay, but also with school. So I was a senior technically. I was supposed I was in my 4th year, but I had junior credits, so they had me in a junior main room.
Yeah.
And though that week and a half really fucked up my school because I was like really out of it. And they had classes, which wasn't really classes. They just gave you 3 worksheets. One counted science, one counted as math, one counted as reading.
Oh, wow.
And the science was a crossword puzzle with animal names on it. The math was multiplication and simple division. Mind you, this is my 4th year in high school.
Yeah, what? That's like, you're supposed to be like trigonometry, pre-calculus, like, and you're doing, this is what the hospital gave you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it counted for school for when I went back. So it's like if I missed any assignments, those assignments that I did in the hospital will count towards the assignments that I needed done at school.
Dude, that's like what I do at work. Like I do like word searches when I'm bored, you know?
Right.
But not like that would never. I mean, when I was in the hospital, I had to do my work. We had like study hour, and I would go to this room with all the other kids that were in the hospital because it was under 18, so everyone was still in school, and they would give me my work. Like I would check my Gmail, my teachers would email me my work, and I would still have to do it. And if I needed help, of course it was like a little exempt where they're like, well, when you come back we can kind of figure things out. But I did all my work. Yeah. It was also part of my OCD of like keeping up with everything and make sure everything's like fine and nothing's missing type of thing. But no, that's weird. I'm sure you were happy.
Oh, I was happy as hell because it was so easy. I'm like, crossword puzzle, done.
Right.
The reading comprehension, that's my favorite thing. It wasn't even work for me.
Yeah.
I always pass when it comes to reading.
You like reading, right?
A little bit,
yeah.
It's more of figuring out context, subtext, and all the other stuff. So, it was easy for me to like kind of just get through that.
Yeah.
I was helping out all the other dudes finish their shit so we could watch our movie.
Nice. Yeah, right. Free time.
Yeah.
Did you guys get ice cream?
One day we did.
We got ice cream every night.
But there was like 3 days where we were locked down.
What the fuck?
Because nobody wanted to shut up. And the head counselor was having a bad week. His fake tooth had fell out and he couldn't find it. So he was walking around with that part of his mouth missing. So he was already frustrated.
Right.
And he put us on lockdown, which wasn't really bad because I had books.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'll stay in my room, read my books,
Doesn't that feel like solitary confinement, though, a little bit, when you're locked in for that long?
I had my roommate.
That's true. That's true. So at least you had somebody. And you liked him, though.
Yeah.
So that's good.
There was other people who couldn't have roommates.
Oh, yeah. That's how if you're at a certain level where you're like, I'm a threat to other people, then for sure, yeah, they're not going to. It's almost a privilege.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
But he had gotten sent away because he was actually crazy. It was like they had to give us a whole speech like he got sent to a group home because he has an actual problem.
Right.
And I was like, damn, because he tried to sneak a spork in his sock after lunch one day.
Was it plastic?
Yeah. And we told on him. Like, all these dudes is like gangsters, and they told on him.
Damn.
They're like, hey, he snuck a spork. I don't feel safe.
Right. I wouldn't either.
And then he flashed another boy across the hallway.
Damn.
Which was funny as hell for everybody else. But
to the boy, probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny. Yeah, they always check for, like, this is some people don't realize, like, how intense the environment is, where it's just, like, they check you for utensils, like plastic knives, which there would be no blood involved if you try. I mean, it's the same thing as taking apart a pencil. You know, it's like pencil would probably even be better, but like they check for all utensils. When you take meds, they
make sure that you got it. You took it and you didn't like hide it under your tongue.
Under your
cheek.
tongue. Yeah, they always check. Like when I first got there, I had to get. It was so vulnerable. Like when I got there, you have to like kind of do the squat and cough thing.
Well, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Because they're like, if I had anything on me, I'd probably use it already or something.
They checked every part of my body.
Damn.
Like every part. And I was also already there for 3 days. And they were just like, have you done any drugs, blah, blah, blah. And this was, I also, when I was 18, never smoked a cigarette in my life, never drank, never smoked weed, like did nothing. I was pretty clean of that. And I felt super, like, almost attacked when because I was like, I'm a good girl. Like, I know I'm in a psych ward, but, like, I'm just super depressed, you know? And then they took me and, like, made me, like, strip. And it was just, I just was super uncomfortable.
That's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing because you're already in such a vulnerable state. And then when they make you, I understand jail because it's like, these are the consequences. This is what's happening.
Right.
But, like, when you're in a psych ward and you're like, I just have really bad anxiety and I want to kill myself, but I don't know how to manage it. And then they're like, well, we're going to make sure you're not also, you know.
A crackhead.
Exactly. And it's like, I'm not. Like, I just want, and not to say that being a crackhead is a bad thing, but it's just like, I don't want to be almost like just like, I don't know. It felt like almost bullying when they were just like looking at every inch of my body, and I was like, all right, this is it was just very uncomfortable. I just didn't like it. Did you? So you haven't been hospitalized since, though, right? Or no?
No, I try to avoid it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad.
It was a life-changing event for me. That even just with a week and a half, a lot really went through my head throughout that time.
Yeah.
You know, like my family was affected.
For sure.
I didn't really tell my friends.
So then, did you tell your friends? Did they not like know where you were when you weren't at school, or like what happened?
Basically, yeah.
Really?
I didn't have much friends in the new school because I just got there. So there was like...
Oh, it was a new... Right. Okay,
yeah, so there was maybe 10, 15 people that knew me, but they didn't... Black dudes in that school disappear all the time. So it's like, what happened to the new black dude? I don't know. He probably got expelled or some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It sounds like it becomes the norm. So I guess, Cool. We are back from break, even though I never say we're taking a break. So
right.
Ever. That is, we will definitely get better at that. Okay. So, yeah, we were going to talk about, like, how you're treated differently. Also, how, like, black, in the mental health community, how it's perceived being a black man. Yeah. Especially not only a man, but also being black is, like, definitely... yeah,
it's a double whammy.
Exactly. That's what they call it in the gender and women's studies class. They call it a double whammy.
Really?
No, I'm joking. Oh. They probably call it, like, double oppression or something. Or,
right.
Yeah. No, can you imagine my teacher trying to... No, it's not. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because even though I've been dealing with depression my whole life, it's normal to me.
Right.
But when I talk to my friends about it, it's a whole different, like, you see the wheels turning, but it just can't click.
Yeah.
So I don't really press the issue. I gotta leave it alone. Like, I have people I can talk to about the situation, like my mom or my sisters or a couple of friends that see me in that state or whatever. But yeah, I keep it to myself. Sometimes you have to keep that type of stuff to yourself. And when you're growing up a young black man, it's like when you're dealing with certain things, you just have to find a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I can really relate to that a lot, actually.
Because if you're crying, then crying doesn't solve the issue.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Also too, that's kind of, I was talking to Melissa about this, and that's kind of how Jewish people handle things, where they're like, well, we have a doctor you can go see. It's like, no, but I want to talk about my sadness with you. I don't need a doctor right now. Like, right. I don't want, it's that stereotypical thing, like doctors, lawyers, whatever. But that's kind of how I've always felt too, where I love my mom, God love her, but like, it's always what she kind of had to grow with me as I kind of had this long state of depression where at first she was kind of just like, well, we'll fix everything. And I'm like, no, I want to like vent to you and like you just support me and be there for me as I'm going through this, and not like, this is a solution, this is a solution, this is a solution. Does that kind of make sense? Like, relate to you? Yeah.
It does make sense.
Yeah. And that's kind of how, that's definitely kind of how I felt. And and how do you, so I just kind of want to talk about this too. Like, how do you approach different people who find out, who like, I talk differently to people about about the stuff I deal with. Like, if I talk to somebody who's my friend, I'm like, oh, I can talk in an OCD mode and talk about my repetitive thoughts and all this shit. But if I talk to somebody who I know is like judgmental, I'm like, yeah, it's just something I do. Like, I approach conversations differently.
Yeah, it kind of pops up and then as a footnote or like a add-in sentence, but you kind of stray away from it to keep them from feeling uncomfortable.
Yep.
Because I spend a lot of times at open mics or shows and all that stuff. It's a happy environment. I don't want to kill the vibe by talking about my sadness.
Of course. Yeah.
Or one thing people always say is like, Ty, I haven't seen you in a long time. Where have you been? What you been up to? And I'm like, oh, I just been asleep.
Right.
I've been at home. I'll say I'm
first
chilling.
First person I've seen today.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. No, I feel that. Yeah.
And I never really noticed how long I've been gone or how long people haven't seen me until they like mention how long my hair has grown since the last time they've seen me. Or like, oh, you got a beard, or did you lose weight or something like that. So they'd be like, how long has it been since?
Right.
In months, probably.
Oh, yeah.
A few people I haven't seen for years.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There's also like physical telltale signs of depression. You're, you're skinnier or you're fatter or you're, your hair's growing out because you're not as inclined to take care of yourself, or hygiene stuff. Like, I hated showering when I was depressed. I showered, but it would take me, like, if I thought about showering, it would take me, like, an hour or two before I'm like, I'll just get in the shower.
See, I love shower. I shower before I leave the house, and I shower once I get back.
Wow. So that's almost like a way to cope, too.
Yeah. And because, I don't know, when I'm outside, I really don't like being outside.
Yeah.
So I feel kind of icky. So, like, I'll probably get a little sweaty while I'm out, and I'll be like, I can't wait till I get home so I can just scrub all this off.
Are you a person that, like, washes your clothes a lot, too?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do. I have, like, I got a washer and dryer in the apartment. And,
it's the best.
And my mom has one.
Yeah.
And she lives 2-3 blocks away.
Okay.
So, there's that.
Yeah. No, that's a huge perk. Yeah. There's a lot of things too where so you said, you're asleep. That was a huge thing for me too. I would sleep just all day.
Yeah. If I don't have anything planned or have anything on the agenda.
Yeah.
Because I would sit, like, I wake up early and think about what could be done. So it could be like, okay, so I can go to this show, or I can go to an open mic, or I can stay inside, play video games, maybe write. And then my body would be like, let's go to sleep.
Yeah.
Or I'll sit down for longer than 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I'll just pass out.
Yeah.
So when I'm outside, I try to stand a lot, because if I sit down, I get bored, and I'll just, like, lay my head down or just go straight to sleep where I'm at.
Yeah.
It happens at, like, religious events.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
those are pretty boring.
They are, but it's like anytime I'm in a classroom setting where people are talking, and I have to, like, sit there and listen, and I can't move around, or I can't, like, get up and leave or whatever, I just doze off.
That's so interesting you say that, because I noticed that about myself too, but I never saw that as a extension of my depression, but I definitely think it could be, because I go to church with my boyfriend sometimes, and then I'll go to synagogue too. We used to go to synagogue, and I would always be like, whenever I'm around a lot of people, I'm like, I just want to go home and go to sleep. Yeah. I get overwhelmed, social anxiety as well, and then I'll be like, I want to go home and sleep. And I think too, that's so interesting you say you need to stand, because I also relate to that too, where if I'm sitting, I would force myself to sit at a desk, because if I'm in my bed doing my work, I would pass out immediately.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah, especially when I'm super depressed. But then I had the opposite problem later on, where I, like, couldn't sleep because I was too anxious. So it's kind of like the back and forth between, like, insomnia and then sleeping too much, not sleeping enough.
Wow.
Yeah, I've had, like, waves of stuff there where it's like everything's kind of just the opposite, where it's like I'm anxious, or I'm not anxious enough because I'm too depressed almost, where, like, I have no affect, nothing affects me. But I've also been on a lot of medication since I was younger, so, like, I think the side effects just totally switched off as I was changing medication. Certain medications made me tired, certain medications made me wired. It was just, like, kind of just, like, a whole... Have you ever been on any meds?
Yeah. Okay. As a kid, I was on Ritalin. I was on Zoloft.
Okay.
And I hated medication. I hated pills. I still hate pills.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't like it. I try to just leave that out.
My boyfriend's the same way too. Yeah. And he and not to say it's because you're black, but my boyfriend's black, and he says that it's a huge thing in the community where, like, he's like, my parents would never give me an Advil. They would just be like, drink some water, rub some Vicks on your chest, like just all that stuff, where it's just kind of just more natural ways of dealing with
healing. Yeah. Sometimes the medicine will affect your body where your body can't fight this thing without the medicine.
Right.
My ex had some mental illness. I forgot what it was, but they gave her medicine too young. So now her mind can't work properly without it.
Oh, yeah. It's scary. I get scared about the long-term effects, but then I'm like, well, they say I need a long-term. They're like, you should never go off of it. And I've thought about it a lot, but then I feel like I kind of get shut down when I propose the idea. By a lot of people. Like, not even just by my psychiatrist, but people who have seen me on it. They're like, we've seen you off of meds, and it's not good. It's not like I'm out of control, but I'm just super, super depressed. Everything's kind of negative and, like, sleeping too much. Definitely when I'm off my medication. I used to cry a lot. Like, so I get scared of that happening.
Okay, that's understandable.
Yeah. How long was she on them for?
She's still on it, and she's 30. Well, she's 29 now.
Wait, when did she go on it? When she was younger?
Yeah, like 6, I think.
Yeah.
5 or 6.
Well, yeah. Have you ever taken them and then gotten withdrawal symptoms from them?
Not really, no.
Okay.
I don't know if I even felt any effects because I hated pills, so like I would take them for a week consistently, and then I'll just forget about them. And my mom...
you didn't realize it?
No, my mom never forced it on me. I was already a little troublemaker in school, so it was whatever. Mm-hmm. Also, my mom kept me busy. I was always involved in something as a kid. So when I was younger, I was in football, boxing, and then she had me in a keyboard class. I didn't really pay attention to that class, but it was a good experience. Then after that, always had some type of after-school program or thing. And I was raised Jehovah's Witness, so there was also shit I had to do for the hall.
Gotcha.
Which was annoying.
Yeah.
Because back then, you used to have to do a thing called talks. Okay. And when you're young and you do a talk, you had to read a section that they gave you. You had to comprehend it and figure out what it meant. Write out a speech about it. Yeah. Then get on stage and present it. Yeah. And they graded you on your research, your posture, how you spoke. Wow. Yeah. And they had tips, and they had like a point that you had to focus on. Yeah. As far as your presentation. Right.
So stand-up definitely was kind of...
Somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of gets you over that public speaking fear if you have one. I mean, or just a little bit less of a fear. But we had to do that for my bat mitzvah, the Torah portion thing, where we have to interpret it in Hebrew, like and then we get like a translator, and it tells us what it means, and then we give it at our bat mitzvah in front of like 100 people and tell them like what it means to us growing up as an adult, and then kind of like what it means to us in the world. And that's basically the same thing. I mean, you're interpreting a Bible verse, I'm assuming, or something like that, and then you're interpreting it, and it almost helps you see the world a little bit differently too, where you're able to look at things from the past and kind of reinterpret them into like how you're living your life and things like that. And then also it helped me with reading too. Just kind of look at things like, this is what a character's going through, but maybe I can relate to this, Yeah,
that's kind of how the Bible was. It was.
And how do you feel about religion and like mental health and stuff like that?
I'd say some religions help with mental health because some people need that hope. If they sat down and actually thought like, man, maybe our creator doesn't give a fuck about us, that type of shit, they'd go crazy. Right. So sometimes people need that feeling that it's going to get better, or it's going to get worse, but it's going to get better. It's all leading to a end, a paradise, a resolution, as long as you don't go out of your way to hurt others. Or yeah.
And that's in all religions too. So people don't realize is that most religions are more like than people want to believe. Yeah. And I always say this too, where like I go to church with my boyfriend, and I'm like, they're saying the same stuff. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Love thy neighbor. Look at your neighbor and tell them I like you, or whatever it is that we have to do in church. It's so different. Yeah. Going to like his church and then going to it's the crazy. Like you're chastised at temple for like talking, or like they're always like shh, and they'll like kick you out. And like his aunt, my boyfriend's aunt, was like weeping because she felt
the spirit,
dude. So I'm like, okay, this is so. I'm like, when's she gonna get kicked out? Like it's such a change where I'm like, and people are like, when the pastor says something that resonates with them, they're like, oh yes, and it's like, if I did that, I'd be like deemed an insane person, So it's such a different culture thing, and like how I've seen his family deal with mental illness as well, and not mental illness, but just symptoms of it, where they're like feeling down, and they're like, I really needed the Lord today. And I'm like, I can never relate to that. Like I could never relate to that. That's not something that I kind of grew up with. So it's super interesting to like hear you say Oh, it's more, I feel like a lot of times in extreme situations where you're like, if I've gotten this far with God, then I don't need God, you know?
Yeah.
Or like maybe he isn't watching out for me and certain things like that. So, yeah. It definitely is interesting going to church.
Yeah, and also reading the Bible, when you read the stories, it's like, do you really want God in your business?
Right, exactly. Especially if you're like in a psych ward, you're like, what? Is he really going to want to see me like this kind of thing? Where, I don't know.
I mean, he's seen worse.
For sure, but I also think, too, it's one of those things where I can't imagine going through God seeing everything, where it's like, I wouldn't want him to, it's more of like, you know when you go to your therapist sometimes and you're like, try to almost like not impress them, but you're like, I don't want them to think bad of me.
Right.
That's how I would feel, I think, if I believed in like a higher power like that. I would feel like almost like I'm disappointing them. And then it's like the cycle of like, well, if I'm disappointing them, then I'm disappointing myself. It's just, I don't know, I feel like it could get super negative.
I used to think like that too.
Yeah.
But then I thought about the story of Job.
All right. Hit me.
You don't know the story of Job?
I don't know anything religious. Like, it's,
It's a story from like the First Testament. Job was a guy who
I'm
was
a good
like,
Jew. Tell it again. I know Job. We go way back. Yeah. Tell it.
He lived in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay.
And he was like the only good man in Sodom and Gomorrah. God hit him up. He was like, yo, I'm about to...
I love how you're telling the story. God was like, yo, man.
I'm about to blow this bitch up. He's like, what? I live here.
Yeah.
And he was like, I know, but it's a shitty place. I got to get rid of it. You are the, and he's like, but what if there was like 10 dudes here that worshipped you? You wouldn't blow it up then? He's like, you're right. He's like, what if there was 5 though? He was like, you're right. And then he was like, what if there was like 3?
Yeah.
And then God just stopped answering. So that day, he's trying to figure out this day, packing up shit with his family. He gets a knock at the door. It's these 2 strangers. They were like, yeah, one of our friends told us you were cool. We just gonna hang out by the center of town and probably sleep and then leave in the morning or whatever. He's like, nah, man, stay over. Kick it with my family. I'll feed you. You can sleep over. You can leave in the morning from my house. The neighbors saw those guys go into the house. Okay. So like all the dudes in the town came to the house, knocking on the door.
Yeah.
And they were like, yo, we saw those dudes go in your house.
Right.
Send them out here so we can fuck them.
Oh, damn.
Come to find out, these 2 guys were angels.
Oh, shit.
That were just hanging out. And Job was like, no, I'm a good host. I'm not going to send my guests out to get raped by the city.
Right.
Yeah, he's like, but I do have these 2 daughters and they're virgins. And they were like, no, we don't want that.
Yeah, what? Okay. That took a turn.
It did. So it's like, they were like, no, we don't want that. We want the dudes.
Uh-huh.
They got really aggressive. They got forceful. And then eventually God was like, don't touch their door or you're going to face the consequences. And somebody touched the door and went blind. So the town dispersed.
Yeah.
And they were like, yo, Job, you got to leave now. This place is fucked up.
Yeah.
They're trying to rape angels. Like, let's go. Now, what fucked me up about that story is God was watching the whole time. Mm-hmm. Most of these stories, like where God comes at the last second and stops everything or saves the day, he was there in the beginning.
Right.
The world was a lot smaller. There was a lot less people to manage. Mm-hmm. Shit, even his angels went on earth and hung out, had kids, fucked around, got in wrestling matches with niggas. The First Testament was really wild.
Yeah.
But there was so much going on. I mean, think about it. Who is telling the story of the Bible? It's God inspired. So God told the dudes that were writing this exactly what to write.
Yeah. But also, well, to attest to the fact that you're like, oh, he was watching over the whole time. And that's kind of how I perceive it, where I'm like, well, if you wouldn't end up in a place of this state if he was supposed to help you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of probably what you're trying to
it's like a
get at.
game of The Sims.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Except, he doesn't take away all the doors and let us starve to death. Oh, maybe he does. We don't know.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and, well, I mean, it could... I believe if you're using it in a positive way. I mean, and I know someone who recently... and I'm not going to say their name because this is public, but they recently were like, oh, they said like a bad word that's kind of deemed in society of today is not, and they're super religious, and they were like, oh, I was only kidding, but I have to say I'm kidding because otherwise the devil will like kind of get back at me or like torture me with this sin. And I was like, that's all, like that you think that you saying like something that's like fuck or shit, like something bad like that.
Having to apologize.
Well, it's also like having to apologize, but it's like, are you really apologizing though if you don't really mean it just because you think this thing's above you kind of thing, where it goes into the thing of intentions where it's like, just do what you want. I mean, nothing, but then again, he also thinks that that's going to happen to him in this whole thing, and it's kind of sad. And I look at it and I'm like, damn, that's a hard way to live.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. That's hard, but then I'm saying, like, it's a hard way to live in the sense of, like, imagine if you did have mental illness and you're like, oh, it's because of I said this one word that was deemed bad. Did God give me mental illness because of blah, 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 blah. Like, I can't imagine living like that.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. So.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was pretty shocked, but I was also, like, I wasn't really shocked because I knew that they were super religious, but I was shocked in the sense of, oh, wow, I just thought about myself, obviously, but I was just like, wow, if I lived like that, I would think I should be dead. You know, because of things that I've said, especially as a comedian where you say fucked up stuff, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, religion most definitely adds to anxiety as far as the things you say, the things you do. Like, should I have done this? Should I have done that? Why am I can't dress like this? They really gave me a lot of shit for growing my hair out.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I go every year to... the only holiday we celebrate is it's not the Passover, but it's around that time.
Today is Passover. Lashana Tova. Thank you. I'm sorry, what?
it's called,
to all my Jews listening.
But it's what is it called? See, I go every year, but I done forgot. It's the weed. It fucked up my memory. Memorial. There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like the memorial, the last meal, because the Bible says, you know, Jesus said, do this in remembrance of me. So it's like the only Jehovah's Witness holiday.
Oh, okay.
So for my mom, I, get all dressed up and go there. And they haven't seen me in years at the hall. Yeah. Because the hall I grew up at. Yeah. So I got the beard. I got the long hair. They're like, they get on my nerves.
Yeah.
They'd be like, what's up with all this here, man? Grabbing on my face.
Oh, they grab it too?
Yes.
Oh, damn, that's annoying. Yeah. Ooh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Mm-hmm. You know what's weird is I always am like, I don't care what people think of me. And then there's always those people in my family who I almost hesitate to tell things to. And I'm like, oh, maybe I really do care about this. Or I say I don't care about what other people think of me, but certain things I'm like, yeah, I do.
Sometimes, yeah. Because I know I slow down on what I post on my Facebook and on my Instagram and on my Snapchat because my father follows me on all of it.
Oh, yeah. There's certain things that my boyfriend is like, my family, like if they're coming to a show, I'm not gonna do any sex stuff. I'm not gonna swear. Like, I get it. I mean, it's like, yeah, there's certain people that you can't. It's not even that one person. It's the fact that like everyone's gonna talk and the whole family's gonna. Yeah, it's definitely it's a whole gossip thing. Okay, well, this does our time.
Yes.
Pun intended. Where can people find you? Instagram, podcast stuff?
Yes, Instagram is Ty Riggs Y'all, at Ty Riggs Y'all.
T-Y.
Yes, RIGGS.
Okay.
YALL. Then Facebook is Ty Riggs. Twitter is Ty Riggs Y'all. I do a podcast called Hood Nerds Network with Jarrell Scott Barnes, Dwayne Murphy Jr., Radescu Hopkins, sometimes Matthew Bright, sometimes Antonio Kareem, sometimes Maddie Robinson. It's a whole crew. Like we're building lineup, we're building a gang here.
Yeah,
a Hood Nerds gang.
I love it.
A gang of nerds.
Yeah, there you go.
Isn't that what gangs are now half the time? Like,
yeah, you're building a brand essentially. Yes. Okay. All right. Please subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, all that good stuff. Thank you for watching Doing Time.